I've played 3,500 hours of Lost Ark, and let's ask the age-old question, should you? So let's talk about the world first. As you can see right now, I'm on a little island called Tortoik, and I'm in the main village. And if you are a new player or you started probably in the last year or so, you might have never even seen this place. I think this is one of the greatest environments and world building MMOs that has ever existed, and all that in Unreal Engine 3. So just keep that in mind. All of this place is Unreal Engine 3, and I'm not even playing on the highest graphics. It's fucking gorgeous. But like almost anything in this game, there's a massive downside, and that is you will never even see this place probably if you didn't level during the earlier periods. Most of this world is completely abandoned, or as you can see, there's not a single other player here, and these places were basically just made for the leveling experience and are also a remnant of a Lost Ark that used to be very different. In the very beginning, the design philosophy around Lost Ark was much more open world, much more, even some Monster Hunter aspects, which is also a remnant of the Guardian raids, but we'll get into that. So that is definitely one thing I want to talk about and praise how fucking pretty this place looks and how the entire world looks like that. But unfortunately, you never really get to experience it because there's almost no reason to ever get out of the major cities. Just like a lot of other MMOs, it's basically all about the progression, and also about lobby-based progression more so than anything. So if we actually, you know what, I'll show you guys this real quick. I will read to you guys a full list of things that you have to do, okay?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
First, every single day you have to do 2 chaos dungeons, which is this right here. You have 2 lockouts every day, and that is for each of your characters. You can have 6 characters, you could have 12 characters. Every single one of those characters wants to do 2 chaos dungeons a day. Although there is a system that allows you to have a rest bonus, basically setting up if you're not doing these dungeons. So you can technically skip out of them until it's filled up. But yeah, you have to do 2 chaos dungeons. Then you have to do 1 Guardian raid per character. That depends on your item level, obviously, just like the Chaos Dungeon, which is a remnant of the Monster Hunter-esque content that used to be in the game. It's not really, it doesn't work like that anymore. This is basically just a singular, you know, like little boss fight that you do every day. Then you have your daily Una tasks, and you could do 3 of these a day. These are usually very quick because you set up teleport points to get there very quickly. But there's another 3 dailies you have to do, which also is in combination with weekly Una tasks, which you can also do 3 of, which you do by, I don't know, doing Guardian raids, for example, here, or you do Chaos Dungeons, or you do completely other content like PvP. You do, for example, for this one, you need to participate in 5 PvP matches a week. So there's 3 Una dailies on each character, and there's 3 weekly Una tasks as well. Then you have things like event dailies, as you can see right here. This is the current event, Toto's Ice Castle, which rewards you with a couple of different things. That's actually also one part that I want to quickly talk about. They have pretty fun events, and as you can see in the background right now, the events are actually pretty thought through, and it's kind of fun to do every now and then. Although I will still say the Naruni racing game back in the day was the best, but you know, whatever. So once you do your daily event tasks, you get currency, and most of the currency you can do in a weekly reset. So you need to farm enough currency each week to farm all of the materials. Top of that, you have roster-wide rewards as well, so you only have to get them once throughout the event period. In this example, you need to do it 4 times to get 4 different legendary card packs, just as an example. In the top left, you also have a schedule for all kinds of different things happening on a timer, like event islands, like world bosses, like, you know, chaos gates, all kinds of things. But you're always on a schedule. You can't just do these things whenever you want to. You always need to look at that little schedule you know, to know when those things are happening. And you also have Legion raids, which is, well, a massive part of the endgame progression system, not only because of the materials, but also they give a lot of gold. So as you can see right here, each character can enter one time. I have 2 endgame content gold rewards left because I've already done one. So per character, if you just care about the gold that you get from these, not the materials, then you can do 3 a week per character. Again, this is limited to 6 characters. So if you do the math, 6 times 3 each week, which is 18 raids you can do every single week if you want to min-max this. Which turns out to be one of the major problems of the game, alongside all of the other dailies, why people are quitting a lot, and why I quit as well, because it becomes just this scheduled checklist that you're going through every day. Oh, I need to still do this. Oh, I can. And by the way, these raids do not have a rest system or anything. So if you miss out on one of these raids, you can't just do the raid twice next week. Doesn't work like that. You just have to do all of the raids every week, or you will be, you know, falling behind in gold gains. So here's also another better list of things that you can do each day, each week. Chaos Dungeons, Guardians, Abyssal Dungeons. These are mainly done either while you're progressing up, although there is some higher level dungeons as well that you can do. So you probably do like one of these a week or something like that. But as far as I understand it, this also counts towards your end game content gold rewards. So you have to choose if you do either 3 Legion Commander raids, or you do 2 Legion Commander raids and 1 of these, and so on, right? So this is just a part of that system as well. And then you also have Challenge Guardians each week, which is basically just old Guardians recycled to, you know, so you can get some more materials and some more rewards from these. And the same thing also happens for the Abyss Dungeons. This is just recycled dungeons you've already done before, where you can get card packs and stuff like that, which is a very important system because it heavily contributes to you being gate kept alongside a couple of other things, but that's a problem on its own. We could get into it real quick, actually, now that we're here already. So the way this basically works is you sign up for different end game activities, and then the people that are making the group can look through your character. So there's a couple things they will be looking at. First of all, your title probably doesn't matter unless you have a really good like hell mode title or something like that, which is the hardest difficulty content that is also equalized. But most of the time they probably don't even look at that. The first thing they look at is the roster level, which is up here, which is basically your account level, which obviously shows that you've played the game a good amount. Then you obviously also have an item level, which on this character is 1584, which is very low, by the way. As I said, I haven't really played that much since Akan normal, I guess. So this is also a very big factor of how people will judge your character. And then they can move on to things like engravings. What does your engravings look like? How is this setup going? It's one of the bigger power systems in the game, where you basically set up different attributes, and well, you can do that through different types of equipment. But overall, this will also be one of the things they will gatekeep you with. If you don't have good engravings, you're not getting a group. On top of that, you also have gems, which my gem setup is a complete flea market, but also a big factor of damage. As you can see, a level 10 gem of this specific ability would give me 40% more damage on that ability, which is obviously a crazy amount. And the more good gems you have, the more damage you will do. It's just that simple. On top of that, you have card sets, and this is probably the worst out of all of these systems, because this is heavily RNG dependent, although they're trying to work on that a little bit. But essentially what you need to do is you need to find cards and random booster packs most of the time, besides these two, I think, at the moment, that you can get from other means as well, and Way, of course. So you have 3 cards or something like that in your set. They're complete RNG and really hard to get. And there's very few means to even get these. One of them is events, others are raids, and other things are just doing old Abyss dungeons over and over again on every character every week, because there's a small tiny chance that you can get one of these cards. And the damage difference is absolutely massive, okay? As you can see right here, the difference between me having an 18-piece awakening is 7% holy damage on all of my attacks, because all my damage type is now holy. Now this is useful on a lot of bosses, but not on all of them, so there's a card set that also gives you dark damage instead, for specific other fights. So technically, if you want to completely min-max, you need more than just one of these. But yeah, this will take you forever, by the way. This is not a system that you can grind out, really. This is not a system that you can like target the drops very well at all. It's just complete RNG. It will take you a long time. And the damage difference is massive. So me having an 18-piece Awakening set only gives me 7% bonus damage. The moment you have the full set, it gives you, on top of the 7% holy damage, another 8%. So it gives you overall like 15% holy damage in total, which is a lot of damage on every single hit that you're doing. And this is also a major point of gatekeeping. People will look at your card set and see, oh, you don't have Light of Salvation 30? Tough luck, we'll take someone else that has it, you know? So this is also one thing that a lot of people really dislike in Lost Ark. There's a lot of gatekeeping because, well, as we just talked about, there's a million different dailies and weeklies that you have to do on multiple characters, by the way, which means you want to get this shit done as fast as possible. And that just breeds gatekeeping, because people want to get it done fast, so they just want to get people in that know what they're doing. Makes sense, so they don't waste time, right? This entire concept of having that many dailies, having that many chores, having this checklist also led to some very interesting developments quite recently. And I'll show you one of these. I'll read it out loud to you, okay? I've been using the bot since July, and it's the only reason I'm still playing Lost Ark. The daily's exhaustion was real. Now I just start out the bot while I'm making coffee before work. I come home to a fully run roster. It has had over 95% chance success rate on clearing chaos dungeons and Una tasks for me. My Lost Ark time can be focused on 1 or 2 nights a week to run raids with friends instead of the mindless, soul-crushing daily chores. Bot gets updated very quickly after major game updates. The bot is well worth the price if you care about your time. It took a few hours to get it set up and running, but after the initial time investment, it has been on autopilot. My main issue with the bot is that now I have too many cube tickets building up across my roster. What is this? Just another symptom of Lost Ark's terrible game design, which is obviously the daily systems we just talked about. Lost Ark always has had a big bot issue, but now it's reached levels that I didn't even think were possible. So beforehand, the bot issues in Lost Ark were mainly bots running like things to generate gold and then selling the gold on RMT website. This still happens to this day, by the way, and I guess that happens in any MMO right nowadays that has a trading system like that. But yes, this still happens, and it still happens very frequently. The Steam numbers also show there's still a fairly significant amount of bots playing. But this is a completely different level of this now, where people are getting bots for their personal accounts to do daily chores for them because they don't want to deal with it anymore. They have done 5 million Chaos Dungeons, Guardian raids, daily quests over and over and over again, and they're tired. So what is the solution? They get a bot for themselves. That's fucking pathetic. That's the level we've reached now. And you know the sad part about that is Lost Ark has so many, as I said, the world is beautiful. Also, maybe what I should mention, these Legion Commander raids are actually probably the best raids in MMO, period. Right? In MMOs, these raids are absolutely stunning, not only visually, but mechanically too. And they're very fun to do in a group and great. But there's also the next problem. You will do these, as I said, 3 times on 6 different characters. So you do 3 of these endgame contents each week on 6 different characters if you want to min-max it. You can just do it on 1 character, but then you will run out of content after 1 hour of playing in a week. Or 2 hours or something like that. It doesn't take long, especially when you're doing older raids. But if you want to play more Lost Ark, the only real way to do that is by making new characters and doing the same content over and over and over again. So even the best content in the game, which is raiding, has a major flaw. And there's actually a couple of more that I want to get into real quick as well. But before we do that, let's talk about one more symptom of bad game design, or let's talk about one more problem of Lost Ark's progression system, and that is RNG. So as I talked about, the card system is heavily RNG already, and even the gem system, if you're not directly buying them, is also an RNG system, but very tame in comparison. What's really the problem is, first of all, quality. To upgrade quality on your gear, you need to basically just gamble. And the higher quality your weapon is, or whatever item you want to upgrade, the lower the chances. And the chances are incredibly low. To upgrade your quality, you go into an NPC, and then you need to pick the item you want to upgrade. So for example, my weapon has currently 88 quality, and that leads to additional damage plus 25, right? As you can see right here. So now I can use these stones to upgrade this. And as you can see, I have less than a 1% chance to upgrade this further. And also, this is not very equivalent to how much damage you do. So the higher you go, the more damage you do. And it's almost a little bit exponential. So you do want to get close to 100 quality, especially on your weapon. So now if you click this, it just rolls a less than 1% chance over and over. There's no pity system. There's no way around you just gambling. There's nothing else you can do about this, okay? Terrible system, has been in the game since launch. But that is just one part of the puzzle. First of all, you can probably see the plus 14, plus 18, all of these little numbers here, which are a result of upgrading. You can upgrade your weapons as well, and your armor and your gloves and everything, and that gives you the item level that you need to actually enter the raids. What is happening right now? There's no way we start and it's already like this. It's a 26% chance. How hard could it possibly be, man? Please. Oh my god. So here, for example, my chance right now of succeeding is 4%. But there is a pity system, so if you reach the artisan energy 100% eventually, you will get the item 100% of the time. But the amount of RNG that's a part of the system as well is crazy, since every click costs you a lot of resources. Not only raw gold, but also silver, shards, and all of the other things that you're getting from your dailies and your weeklies, I guess. So that's also another RNG system on top of the RNG system. And then it gets worse, obviously. Getting accessories, most of the time you will just want to buy them, but accessories also have Giga RNG to them, because not only do they have quality tied to them, which is very important, they also have the stat tied to them, which in this case is crit, which is also complete RNG when it drops. And then you also have 2 engraving effects on top of that are also completely RNG, plus the negative the engraving effect, which is very required to actually get your engravings. Luckily, you can just buy these, right? If you just farm a lot of gold, you can just buy this and kind of circumvent the RNG with the accessory system, but it's also not good. Then on top of that, you have a bracelet, which you have to roll different stats on, which is also pretty RNG, but it's okay, I think. Then you have your ability stone, which is also a system tied to the engraving system, which is also incredibly RNG. And then just recently, they added another new system, which is the elixir system, which also grants you a lot of power and is also incredibly RNG. But to be fair, that one is much better than the ability stones, for example. Okay, at least you have a little bit more control here. But my point is, the progression system of this game is basically just one big casino. But yeah, that being said, there's a lot of RNG to all of the progression systems, and not only that, there's also a lot of pay to win to all of the progression systems, which is why RMTing and just pay to winning in general is very rampant. A lot of people do it, a lot of people swipe, and a lot of people also swipe illegally because there's very little punishment to it. So it's kind of either you do all of the chores and you do all of the boring stuff, or you just swipe and you kind of circumvent that. Or like this other guy, they're just buying themselves bots to do it for them. And that being said, the only really cool weapon in the game, and the only, let's say, unique weapon in the game, is a sidereal weapon or an ester weapon, which is basically completely and entirely impossible to get if you're not pay to winning. So this is a big downside in my opinion, because this weapon is actually interesting, but again, this is tied to pay to win, and that's it. They're just trying to whale hunt with this. And that being said, let's talk about the raids real quick, because I do think raiding is the best part of Lost Ark, and if you are going to play Lost Ark long term, you will play it for the raids, and really nothing else. The raiding in Lost Ark is actually top-notch, the design is top-notch, the visuals are top-notch, and still, Lost Ark's combat system, which we didn't really talk about a whole lot yet, is also top-notch. It's also one of the best, in my opinion, the best top-down combat system I've ever played, and just like a lot of Korean MMOs, combat is king. So combat is great in Lost Ark, and the bosses alongside it are also great. Again, there's just a couple problems that come with them, one of which we already talked about, which was the repetitiveness, how often you have to do them, but there's two other problems I want to talk about real quick. Since you do them so many times, a lot of the raid event, like the spectacle, the awe that you get from the cinematics, all of these things diminish very quickly. So that's one big factor, because these raids are actually very cinematic. They're very orchestral in a way, where the music picks up and it's like this epic thing. But since you do them so many times, they become much less of a spectacle and much more of a chore. On top of that, which we just talked about a little bit, item drops. The item drops you get from these raids are basically just RNG accessories. 99% of the time aren't worth anything. There are basically 0 unique item drops, with a few exceptions where you can get like maybe a rare mount from it or something, but there's 0 unique items, 0 unique weapons, besides the Estar one, I guess. And that's also one of the things why the different boss fights don't feel super interesting, because you do the bosses every single week, let's say on 3 characters, and each time the boss just drops like a bunch of accessories that are worth absolutely nothing, and every now and then you get something that's worth something. There's no specific, like, intentional items in there, which makes it a lot more boring over time, because you're not really anticipating cool drops, right? There aren't any cool drops. And on top of that, if you're playing on the Western version, so NA, EU, South America, you will have a very delayed content release. And what that means is, once a new raid comes out in the West, it's already been out in Korea for 3 to 6 months, if not longer. And by that point, obviously, a lot of guides will be out. Everyone will have seen the raid. So the moment it gets pushed on to our servers, there's a lot of gatekeeping going on again. You need to have watched this and this and this guide. You need to understand the raid before ever even trying it out before. In most cases, obviously, you can find blind groups as well, but those are actually really rare, and you need to set them up yourself most of the time. But yeah, that's also one big problem, especially for PvE content. The delayed release completely kills the hype for me. It just feels like another chore that gets added to the list, unfortunately. Although the raids are amazing, and although the combat is amazing, again, there's always a but at the end of every good thing Lost Ark has, because somehow they can't figure out to really get the most out of their systems, like a lot of other Korean MMOs do. And we can also talk about PvP real quick. You have Team Deathmatch, which is 3 versus 3. Which you can queue in a group as well if you are playing normal games. And you basically have a free-for-all, and then you have a 1v1 King of the Hill type of game that also has 3 players on each team, but they rotate out. And you also have Ranked, which is only the 3v3 mode, and that's basically the end of the PvP, unless you want to do like guild versus guild stuff, which is also basically entirely underdeveloped. So this is basically the extent of PvP that you will do, and it used to be quite popular back when Lost Ark launched. Nowadays, not so much. It's basically dead content. Although, in my opinion, to this day, I believe Lost Ark PvP actually brings out the best of the combat system, more so than even the raids do. And I still think to this day that that 1v1 PvP in Lost Ark would be the pinnacle of the game. PvP used to be a little bit more updated back in the day, but nowadays it's abandoned basically entirely by Smilegate. So if you're a PvP player, you will have to make your own fun, because Smilegate is not going to give you new content whatsoever. Let's be honest. There's no balancing, there's no good matchmaking, there's so many problems within the game systems that doesn't make any sense. There's terrible guides, so new players are basically immediately alienated, and you cannot really figure out most things unless someone tells you how it works. The camera is really weird. The widescreen gives you a massive advantage that also applies to the entire game basically, but yeah, I would not recommend you play Lost Ark for the PvP, although again, I still think it is the system or the part of Lost Ark that has the most potential, which is sad, but that's just the reality. And then we can also talk about professions, but professions is just like PvP, basically entirely abandoned. I would not recommend you to ever really do these professions unless you have literally nothing else to do. Yes, you can make money with it, but for the most part, it's just a waste of time. For example, this is the entirety fishing material list that you can see right here, and the most common and most sold fish is called fish, because they're so creative that they literally couldn't come up with anything else. And as you can see, there's barely any fish to begin with, so it makes sense that the most sold fish in the game is basically called fish, because they have completely abandoned life skilling. I don't even know anyone who does it still, but you could technically still do it and make a little bit of money on the side with that. But overall, it's an abandoned system, and the only reason you would ever do this is just to get money out of your life skill energy, and that's about it. Yes, there's also platinum field and whatever, but life skilling in Lost Ark is just an afterthought to make money. Not really anything you want to spend a lot of time thinking about. So if you're coming from games that are more sandbox oriented, this is not one of those, okay? So with all of that out of the way, overall speaking, after I've played 3,500 hours of Lost Ark, there are a lot of problems. And a lot of these problems are not really getting addressed, or slowly getting addressed to the point where it's just too slow and it just won't last, right? I still think Lost Ark is a great game at its core, and it does a lot of things very right, especially the combat system, especially the raiding. Everything outside of those two things, though, is very questionable and oftentimes more negative than positive. So overall, let's get to the scoring of Lost Ark. I still think Lost Ark has the best raiding and combat in a top-down game I've ever seen, and it's not even remotely close, but that comes with a lot of negatives as well. So it's kind of hard to rate in that sense. So we'll have two different scores, just like we did with BDO, where I said if you're just playing BDO to have long-term solo progression, it's probably a 7 out of 10, but overall it's a 5 out of 10. Similar to that, Lost Ark, if you just want to play raids, I also think it's a 7 out of 10. If you just care about MMO raiding and a good combat system, I think Lost Ark is good. I think it's decent, although there's still a lot of negatives to it. It's still a good game. But as an overall game, that's very different. First though, if you're playing on the Korean server, that's also going to be a little bit different. I think if you play on the Korean server, it's probably instantly going to be a 6, which is 1 score higher than it is in the West. Just playing on the Korean server means you get the updates, when they're actually coming out, so you can experiment with new raids, you can experiment with new classes, and there's not going to be like this slew of guides that you have to follow because the content is new, right? We always get the leftovers in the West, so if you're playing Lost Ark in the West, it's maybe a 5 or a 4. Now the question really is what you're trying to do or what you're looking for in a video game. I will say this though, in comparison to Black Desert, Lost Ark does a much better job at having a polished experience. The combat is more polished, although in theory the combat is a little bit worse. In actuality, Lost Ark's combat is super polished, super clean, works the way it's supposed to, just like the raids are. But there's also so many problems with the game that I'm not even sure that I could list all of the problems in like a single hour of talking about it, right? There's so many problems that come with the systems that they introduced, although the rest of the game is very clean and polished. It's really hard to rank this, but there's no way it's above a 5 out of 10. The only question is it above BDO or is it not? And I think it's interchangeable. I actually subjectively would rather play BDO because I don't like dailies. I hate dailies. Logging back into Lost Ark after like a long time is torture. I don't want to do a single chaos dungeon anymore. I don't want to do any of these raids anymore. I've done them too many times. I don't want to do it. Get me the fuck out, right? But at the same time, Lost Ark systems are much more polished than BDO. So in its specific niche, I think it's doing slightly better because the combat works, the raids work. There's no inherent engine flaw or something like that. But then again, all of the Lost Ark systems are inherently flawed as well, with dailies and botting and pay to win and all of those things too. So I think it's very similar to BDO in that sense, in a rating sense. It might be lower, it might be a little bit higher, but honestly, at that point, it's just pick your poison, you know? Like, both of them have good parts and a lot of bad parts, and I think Lost Ark is just like that as well. So I think that is completely subjective here. I think overall I would probably put Lost Ark slightly above BDO just because it's more polished, but it doesn't really matter. I think they're both interchangeably okay, and it just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a solo grinder with insane action combat, get BDO. If you're looking for an insane grinder in the sense of just doing raids over and over again on multiple characters, with also decent combat and top down, you should play Lost Ark, right? It's just that simple. I think they're very different games, but also weirdly similar in their rating, right? So yeah, that's where I will put Lost Ark. I think it's okay. You can play it. It's not going to be a great experience. It's not going to be a terrible experience. But if you're looking to raid, I would recommend it. If you're not looking to raid, if you don't really care about raiding that much, I would definitely not recommend Lost Ark. I think it's only in a 5 because of the raiding. If you would remove raiding from Lost Ark, it would probably be a 3. I'm gonna be honest. If the raids didn't exist in Lost Ark, the game has nothing else. Okay, it's a one-trick pony. That's the only thing it does, is giving you raids that are actually cool. And there's always new raids coming out. Again, even better so if you're in Korea. So yeah, that is my Lost Ark rating. That is my Lost Ark review. Should you play Lost Ark in 2024? If you want to raid, yes. If you don't want to raid, no. That's basically how it is. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for hanging out. There will be a couple of more of these videos coming soon. There's the Season of Discovery WoW thing, which I might check out. I'm not 100% sure yet. And after that, there's also the Last Epoch release. That one I will definitely check out. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope this was helpful. If you have any other suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. And as always, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Have a good one, guys. Peace. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.